Welcome back, farmers. Where I'm from, it's getting a little too cold to keep growing peppers, so what I'm going to go through today is teach you how to take a plant that is living in the ground and convert it to hydroponics. For starters, peppers are something that you can do this with. You will not want to do this with a tomato. Tomatoes are not perennials. Peppers tend to be perennial, and different species can live for different periods of time. This is an annuum, so it can live up to a couple years, but there are some varieties that live up to 8-10 years. And what you can do with every pepper plant pretty much is, if you love how it grows during the summer, this is my favorite pepper right here, the KS White Tie, what you can do is you can go through and trim it back and move it into a grow tent. You can use multiple different forms of hydroponics to keep it alive. What I'm going to do is probably either cracky or deep water culture. Not 100% yet, but what I'm going to do is show you how we do that. So step number one, this might be the hardest part because of how sad it is and what you have to do in order to move it over there into a hydroponic system. You're going to have to cut back pretty much all of the branches on this thing, and it's hard for me to do because you watch this thing grow all summer, produce all these peppers, and you really don't want to, but in order to keep it alive and give it a fresh start, that's what you have to do. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to go through and cut off all of the limbs until we have a main stalk. Alright, so I'm going to go through and cut it, and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. So one tip, if you want to make clones of this plant, or if you want to propagate it, whatever you want to call it, you can use these parts of the plant that you're cutting off to make new ones. So if you have multiple nodes on a single branch, you can clone this plant and make a whole new one. I'll go over that in a different video. I might already have a video explaining how to do that, so if you want to go back and find it, or I might link it up above, I might do that. But yeah, you can take these right here and create an exact clone of this plant with cuttings that you're taking off. So if you don't want to dig a whole plant up and keep it alive, you can start a new one by using some of its cuttings. Alright, so I took the camera off the tripod here just to give you a little bit of a closer look. So this is what it's looking like. You might go, hey Marcus, there's no leaves on this thing. How is it ever going to recover and grow into a full plant again? Well, if you look earlier in the spring, I did the same thing. And what you're trying to do here is just create new growth. Every single little node there on that trunk is pretty much what it looks like. It looks like a brown stick. But that brown stick has a bunch of nodes running up along it where it's green. And that is where you're going to get your new growth. Alright, so you probably can't see me very well because I want you to focus on the plant anyway. But all we're going to do is go through here and dig this thing up. And don't be worried about damaging the roots because we're going to trim those back anyway. I would say though that you don't want to damage them too much, but don't be too worried about it. I'm going to dig about, I would say, 6 to 8 inches away from the plant. Alright, so when I planted this thing, I did not realize that I kept the net cup in it. So we have a net cup that has roots, and that's a good little root ball right there. You can see this big taproot really went down, try and find some water. So what we're going to do is I'm going to try and take this net cup off of here because we don't really want that. For the hydroponic system, we're going to put a new net cup on there. So all I'm going to do is go through and try and get as much soil out as possible. We are going to wash this and dip it in some soapy water to kill any pests if there are any, because we do not want to bring those into the grow tent. Alright guys, so we have this right where we want it. We've trimmed back the roots a little bit and we've trimmed back the main stem. So all we're going to do now is clean this thing off before we put it somewhere in the grow tent. Alright guys, so we got our bucket here of soapy water, and all we're going to want to do is, I really didn't stir up the soap too good, so we're going to want to do that. We're going to stir up the soap and just let this soak for about 10 to 15 minutes. Now this might sound and look ridiculous, but the reason we're doing this is to get off any soil that is left over from the ground. And we're doing this to make sure there's no pests on the plant. Because things like aphids are going to die if we use soap and water when we're about to transfer it to the grow tent, because we do not want aphids in the grow tent, because that's going to cause more problems than just filling up a bucket full of soap and water and cleaning the plant off. So we're just going to let that soak here for a little bit, and I'll get back to you when that is done. Alright, so while this thing finishes up soaking, I'll explain what we're going to do next. You just need to rinse this thing off before moving it inside. So you just don't want the soap on there. The reason we don't want soap on there is because soap will change the pH of your water, and I really don't talk about the pH of water too much because where I'm at, I have pretty good pH water and I usually don't have to deal with it. But you definitely don't want to be adding soap and changing it, especially if you're already fixing the pH beforehand. Alright, so with the roots already being established, this is something I really didn't think about beforehand. I'm going to have to put this thing in a net cup, but none of the net cups are really going to work because those roots are really big and I don't think they're going to fit through the slots. So what I'm going to do is use this plastic planting container and cut some bigger holes in the bottom here for the roots to go through. And it's just big enough to where it can sit inside the reservoir and reach the water. So I'm going to try this out. First time I've ever done it. I'm going to fill it up with clay pebbles as I usually would and see how this works. So this might be a cheaper alternative for people that don't want to buy net cups. Alright, so the plant, as you can tell, I have it soaking in just regular water right now to clean it up. But the plant is going to be moved into the grow tent. I'm going to cut holes in this and I'll show you what it's looking like in the grow tent. So that worked out better than I thought. I cut a few holes right here and fed the roots through. So as long as these have contact with the reservoir, we should be in good shape. So I'm going to move it to the grow tent and I'll show you what that looks like in there. So here's the plant in the grow tent. That actually fit perfectly in there, so it's kind of a cool hack. And we have some clay pebbles right here to help support it. The roots are down in the reservoir getting access to water and nutrients. And this is where it will be for the next several months until spring rolls around. So this plant will be 1 year old when November rolls around. I planted this in Thanksgiving in this exact grow tent right over there and grew it outside for the summer, and now it is back in the grow tent. So this has been a really cool journey, and I'm going to keep this plant alive as long as I possibly can. If it dies here in the next couple weeks, I won't be too upset, but I just want to keep it going because that is a girthy stalk for a pepper plant, and I just want to see how long an annuum will stay alive if given the right conditions. So that'll be it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I hope you guys are enjoying all this hydroponic content because that's really what I'm going to be getting into here in winter. And I grow a lot of plants hydroponically. I have a couple hydroponic systems. I have this grow tent. So if you like to learn about hydroponics, stay tuned because there's going to be a lot of great content coming your way.